Today, we welcome Fernando Fanton to Breaking Down Barriers. The reason why you want to tune into this episode is because he's scaled Mendeley's user base 5x to build in Monzo's product engine that surpassed 10 million customers, to playing a key role in Just Eat's 8 billion acquisition. Fernando Fanton is one of Europe's most respected product leaders. Today, he's already been a part of one of the biggest investments in the MENA region, 520 million with Blackstone and Permira, and shaping the future of Property Finder with AI-driven home search. In this episode, we're hoping to uncover the barriers behind the biggest product wins of his career, how to scale product teams fast without losing focus, the secret to embedding discovery, experimentation, and iteration into every team, what founders and VCs often get wrong about product and hiring a CPO, and the bold predictions for AI, tech, and the MENA ecosystem in 5 years. So whether you're building a startup, leading a product organization, or investing in one, Fernando shares the playbook, insights that you will not find on LinkedIn. Tune in to Breaking Down Barriers and rethink what's possible in product leadership. So, welcome. What an intro. We'll start with a very quick fire just to get you focused. So every leader obviously faces barriers. What's the first big tech risk that you ever took?
Tech risk. I mean, I think one of the biggest, I will say, the biggest was definitely migrating all the platforms on Just Eat into one within less than a year. Mainly because we had to create a logistics capability for last mile that did not exist. And I don't think anybody thought it was possible. We were not sure it was possible, but sometimes you have to set up the aggressive target in order to find kind of the 9 slices of the pizza, if you wish, and get the team to truly go deep. And thankfully it was successful and it became a great outcome, but it was definitely a big risk.
And was it hard to get people on board at first? You mentioned obviously a lot of people thought it wasn't possible, and obviously you wanted to do this big hairy goal.
Yeah, I think it was harder with the engineers, of course, because they actually have to do the work. It was obviously, the board was quite worried at the time. The beauty of it was the urgency. We didn't have an option, if I'm honest. And that's why sometimes urgency is the mother of all inventions, which I think is a very accurate term, because there was no other option. If we like it or not, the alternative was kind of to lose, right? So, but the engineer thought we were crazy at the beginning. But the beauty is that when you ask them, you will see their face, and if they're thinking really hard, you've done the right thing, because you just need to figure out how to go about it.
Yeah. And if I reverse engineer that then, so the first time that you knew that you'd nailed a product launch, but then failed.
That then failed. Oh, that's a good one. I'm going to look bad if I say none of it. I wouldn't say that failed, but there's sometimes where you're super excited with a release, is working really well with early feedback from customers, interview users, and then it doesn't scale, right? It doesn't scale to the size that you expected. Generally, it's because it's a bit more niche than you thought. Honestly, thankfully, I can imagine, I think in Rappi, we tried a few things to drive the super app concept, and it just did not take off the way we thought at the beginning. But it's the reality of product, right? So I think product is always about learning and trying very aggressively to get there. You should not stop because the first iteration doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right?
So I want to lean in on that bits that I picked up on, because it feels a lot like me. I have a fear of failure and I hate to fail. So how do you deal with failure?
What I like to do, and I think it works very well in scale-ups, is the competitive angle, right? So I'm into sports, as you know, and I love the competition. And competition is two things. Of course, at the end of the day, you want to be number one and be the competitor, right? I always have a joke with my wife that we were playing the final of Argentina. Lost the final of the World Cup in 2018. And she's like, it's okay, you're second best. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that, right? You really want to win. Yeah. So I think the competition is great for scale-ups, because you're trying to always look at your competitor and be number one. And the velocity is very fast. But in reality, competition is with yourself, right? Is a company truly pushing as hard as you can possibly can, right? And you should definitely not be afraid of failure in scale-ups, because if you don't try hard enough, you're going to fail for sure, right? And that's the beauty of scale-ups. in 2-3 years the market will completely be different, and the real risk is not to try, right? Staying the same is not an option. So that helps a lot to be inventive and to take risks, because the alternative is just not viable.
Mm-hmm. So what was your first oh shit moment as a leader then?
Oof. That was even when I was very, very young, if I'm honest. I think I was like 16 or so, and we have this little company in Argentina. And we were selling software to small shops, right, in Buenos Aires with Leandro, a really good friend of mine. And we were so very geeky, and we have this really cool stuff, and we loved it. And we show it to customers, and we realize that they only care about the UX, right, how it looks. And we were very, into physics and math, and we were really excited about that piece. And we realized that it's really everything, perception is really important, and everything comes through the eyes primarily, right? So we hired our first designer, it's more than 20 years ago. And that was a moment when I realized, like I said, oh shit, right? It's truly about the perception and the usability of the product. If you don't get that right, nobody even will figure out how good it is. They will even try it, right? So that was a huge learning for me, because I was born an engineer, let's say, right? I started programming on my own, and product and design kind of came through the commercial need, right? Just to make sure that I could sell something at a very young age, which was super useful for me in my career.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm going to go behind the barrier now, because a lot of people may or may not know about the Mendeley Elsevier journey, but I remember it very well in the sense of the volume, the large scale data. I mean, we were hiring big data engineers into there in the early days.
Yeah.
So you were very early in actually building and being part of these data and machine learning. So like, what barrier maybe did you break there, or what did you carry from that role in that company in today's world? Because obviously it's evolving more and more with the acceleration of AI, but you were very much immersed in it already, right?
Yeah, this was, I think, 2013, right? And the Mendeley team was absolutely superb. A lot of PhDs. It helped that it worked in science, because a lot of folks were really attracted to that problem and great founders, right? Jan and Paul, amazing founders. So that was my first scale-up experience. And what happened is that the team was very technical, very geeky. And basically, the big solution was a clustering algorithm that was built in Hadoop at the time for similarity, right? To match documents that were slightly different, say this is a canonical document, and then allow you to share. And the learning was really the potential already. I studied machine learning in college, right? So it wasn't new to me conceptually, but there were already the big data improvements started to show up, right? Hadoop was the tool in that time. The fact that you could actually do this for the entirety of the documents in the universe, in the entire world, and do it well and quickly. And I think it took us a few hours to run the algorithm. And then we even have a real-time way to adjust it. Clearly showcased that big data was real, and you can process the entire document set of the world within a few hours. And obviously, big data is when it ends up unlocking, right, deep learning later on, and of course, now with the LLMs. So I guess it was a big realization that it was here to stay, and it was commercially viable.
So you saw it early. You saw the kind of future early with all of this, being immersed in that world.
We saw the power for sure, right? I couldn't believe. Hadoop came way before that with Google, but it was hard for me to believe that we could do it in London with a few very bright engineers still, right?
And did you predict this sort of 10 years, how many years later, right, that we're in today?
It's funny because I used to learn about neural networks in college, right, like 20 years ago, and play with robots and all that kind of thing. And it was very intellectually stimulating, because conceptually all these ideas that machines could learn on their own were there, right? A lot of the famous guys, like Geoffrey and those guys were already around. None of these, all these guys are in their 60s and 70s, right? The godfathers of AI. I would say that nobody thought it would happen this fast. I didn't think it would happen this fast. I think everybody was surprised where ChatGPT came out. And also it's quite different than it's based on deep learning, but it's definitely not how we used to do AI 5-10 years ago. It's a complete different new stack. And it's been quite amazing to live through it.
Yeah.
I didn't think I'll see it with my own eyes, right? But here we are.
Yeah. And if I compare Just Eat and Monzo for 1 minute, so getting to millions of orders versus millions of customers, but still the same thing, but in obviously different industries, like what was harder?
I mean, I think you have to understand is all these successful cases where Just Eat that gets to 20, 40 million users, 100 million orders, and Monzo, 12, 13, 15 million users, and they start from zero and are the trailblazers in an industry, are extremely difficult and extremely rare, right? We love to talk about Revolut and Monzo. That's the 1% of the 1%, right? More companies fail before, and more companies don't reach a level when they can stand on their own, they get bought. If you look at the exits, the majority of the exits are acquisitions, strategic, right? Historically. And even more failed before, right? That's why you have the series A, series B, every one there's a failure point. So it's extremely difficult to make this thing happen. What I found the commonality is you definitely have a team that was a true believer, have relentless energy and conviction about the work set up to do. And they also survive many, many moments of life and death moments, right? So Just Eat when Uber was coming in with all the money into the UK, we didn't have a logistic platform. We had to build it with no time. And I remember sitting down with David, the founder, which is absolutely brilliant founder, David Buttress. And we were looking at all the things we had to do within a year before Uber scaled up. And we had pretty much nothing of it ready. And he still have that, it's okay, we're going to do it. We're going to succeed. Which is a classic trait of founders, right? That kind of optimism. And no matter how odd and difficult things are, just keep pushing. The same in Monzo, right? This relentless pursuit of success. And also they have something unique. Just Eat was such a happy place, full of energy, extremely passionate about being in multiple countries and being a global platform. Canada, Australia, all of Europe. And Monzo had a passion for users and to be the best digital experience for banking and change banking for the better. That you could feel it when you open the door, right? And which I think is really, really hard to replicate.
I remember when you first started with the hype, you just wanted the card, but you had to get a certain amount of referrals, I think, to get them.
And everybody has a story about it from outside. And it's funny when you talk to the guys, I'm talking to Andy or some other folks that have been there for a long time. I won't divulge it here, but the real story is always there's some even rumors of how it turned to be, like the color of the card and all the iconic things. I think you have to send an email to Tom at the beginning to pick up the card. It's full of those all amazing moments where you could never predicted where you will be now. Right?
Yeah. And if I look at it from the Just Eat standpoint of view, so building a company to exit, like what does the start, middle, and end look like from your perspective, and how it should look like? The start, middle, and end of building a company to scale and exit.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned, obviously, it's very few.
Just Eat had a few moments, right? So we had the IPO first in 2015. And it's very unique for Just Eat that it IPOs one thing, which is an e-commerce platform, and then the world changed into logistics, right? With Deliveroo and mainly Uber Eats coming out very strongly worldwide. That started with, just cars, right? Which is simpler. And then a two-sided marketplace. They went to a three-sided marketplace, which is with food as well. So it was almost like a second IPO. We have to now compete at that level and succeed, right? And still being the number one in the UK and still compete all over the world. So it's almost like you have to do it twice. And then when the acquisition was near, or the merger was near with Takeaway, it feels the same. And really what being closer to an IPO or an acquisition or a merger means is just you have a very clear runway of 12 months that you know what you need to do and you cannot fail, right? You know the metrics you need to hit. You know the user growth, particularly you have to have, or order growth. You know the profitability you cannot miss, and you really cannot miss. The beautiful part is the dopamine and excitement and adrenaline that you have because it's such a clear milestone. So what I like to do in any company is really, if you don't have those forced milestones, which is clear that it's an acquisition close near or a possible acquisition on an IPO, just create them, right? So use the annual cycle or the 6 months planning to create those milestones, because it drives much more urgency and pace from the company, right? So it's not that different. People have a lot of fantasies around IPO. The round we just did with Property Finder is as good or better than an IPO in terms of liquidity, right? So IPO is only like a bigger round that you want to start kind of bringing liquidity to investors and And I think it's a nice milestone, but it's not that different from other bigger rounds that you do privately.
But during that 12-month period, 'cause you mentioned obviously how hard it is and you can't miss those metrics and milestones, is that harder than ever in a sense of having the right people on the bus, in the right seats, going with you as that trickles down the levels within an organization?
I think there's, in my opinion, there's two things. One, the tension is a bit more, you feel it a bit more, and you want to have people that thrive with it. Generally, you will see the successful folks and scale-ups have a competitive edge when they actually like the challenge. Like they like to rise to the occasion. They like to be relentless and connected all the time, right? So they self-select into it. They will be bored in a regular company, right? In a regular corporation, they will be bored to death. Almost be bored to death in a regular company, and most of these folks are the same. And the second thing is you pretty much are going with the team that you're going, right? So it's not the classic, I'm going to wait and find the leader. No, this is a team. Here we go. We have 12 months. It's kind of a race or a sprint. So you're not going to tinker with the team that much, right?
Yeah.
Because you're really focused on just every single milestone that you need to hit.
Yeah. And having a philosophy is so important. I'm an unfortunate Manchester United fan right now, and obviously Ruben has a philosophy, and we're not sure whether it's the right philosophy, but he has a philosophy. We had the Numi way when we built our business, and it was all around the values and cultures. And I've heard you talk about the Monzo way, both at the event that we did and on a product talk a while ago.
Yep.
And it was all about discovery, build, pilot, and grow. And I get to the point, it sounds simple, but it's rare. So like, how do you do this consistently? How do you actually embrace this and put this methodology into a business that everyone believes in?
Yeah, I think that almost every of these iconic or successful companies have a way of doing things. Obviously, Monzo, quite iconic on the terms of the product, how much effort and attention to detail in delivering the best experience. And it's really ingrained on everybody, particularly the squads, right? The teams. So the team is very proud of what they do. They do a ton of research from the beginning. The other beautiful thing that you don't see as much in Europe is that you're defining the future yourself. You're not looking to copy other folks because there's nobody to copy, really. So you have to anchor much more in user research because there's nobody you can look for a jump start, right? Which I think is a great thing in the long run if you know how to do it. And of course, these companies, they have to be great at it because they wouldn't be there otherwise. And I think the seed and scale is very natural in this world with in banking for sure, but I think everywhere. You always want to learn fast. So you want to start small, test it and learn, tweak, improve, fix the issues. And when you see if the distraction, Revolut is the same. When you feel the distraction, you scale it, right? Amazon talked about this a lot. Makes a lot of sense. It's hard to do, right? It requires a bit more effort, but it's, in my opinion, the right way to do it. We're doing the same in Property Finder now. And I think all successful companies that innovate a lot do it this way. Because it's easier if you fail, you just stop and you haven't incurred that much cost or effort. So it's really the most efficient way. And you want to do as many of these as you can. Right?
I know you spoke about Property Finder there, so you meeting more resistance to apply that methodology. I can imagine people in the region embrace it because, we get to a whole another subject around product-led organizations here in the region, but is it harder, would you say, in the sense of the culture so far? Or
no, at least here, maybe is the UAE or Dubai that has this energy to it, right? Because you can see, particularly in property, the velocity of things happening. So actually it was the opposite. There was so much desire to accelerate and to evolve beyond, not only being an amazing classified, but go beyond that into other areas. There was a lot of excitement to do it. And sometimes you have to explain, look, we're going to start with a small MVP. MVP is a term that is very misused, right? In my opinion, MVP is very simple, right? And product is very simple. It's just, are you better than the alternative, right? So whatever you do, people were doing it today some other way, right? In a great occasion, they were not doing at all. But in the majority of the cases, they used to do it some way, right? Maybe digitalization was they do it over the phone, and now they're doing it on the computer. Now it could be that they're doing it in a way that is much more clunky and less and harder to discover, and now it's easier. So you just want to be better than the alternative, truthfully. That's all you're doing, right? And then to scale it is quite hard because you need to be better than the alternative for a lot of people. So the way to do it is, let's just be better than the alternative for a few people. Let's make sure those are on board, don't really like it. because you don't have find anybody that likes it, you're in trouble. And to me, that is market product fit, right? Or the beginning of it.
Yeah.
And then, and you start to scale it, you see that there's more and more demand, and that is, you can clearly see is market product fit. But it should be done very, very thin slice, right? You don't try to solve the entire industry in one go. You just want to get some people to start doing it the way you're doing it and loving it. It's okay that not the entire of the country can do it yet. That's completely fine. It will take you a year or two sometimes to scale it to that capability. But at least you need to find those folks that prefer your alternative versus what they were doing before.
Yeah. And you're now obviously applying AI to home search in MENA. So what is the biggest barrier then in tuning AI into like real customer simplicity versus just features?
Well, I think there's two things in my opinion. First, the core product principles don't change, right? Which is something you have to do something that because it's useful. You don't try to shoehorn a technology just to do it, which sounds silly, but a lot of companies used to do that, right? I have Microsoft, we're guilty of doing this. Just we love the technology, we know it's the future, and you're trying to put it in maybe before the use case is clear.
Yeah,
everybody knows the LLMs are the future, right? It's a full stack solution, incredibly powerful, and really and everybody knows that that's where the answer is going to be. And what we're doing now is you need to start playing with the technology, build infrastructure, connect your data to it, find out how to deal with hallucinations. Some tooling starts to come out, but you start to play with it and make sure that the use case is really valuable to the end customer, which in practice is much more difficult than when you're playing with it, because there's a lot of corner cases that you have to solve so people can rely on it, right? Not just hallucinations, but that's maybe the most obvious one. And the important thing is to start doing that in the company. And so you start learning and you start improving that stack and you start building your own stack around it. And then sooner or later, you're going to keep expand and building more what we call natural AI. So basically, being AI first means just use a stack end to end, right? Not just a glue on a chatbot on the side. And we're starting to do that ourselves. Obviously, you saw some of the releases we talk about. AI search is the most obvious one, when you can use a natural language to write, and then the LLM helps you kind of tag it and create filters with it. So it's maybe the most obvious, but there's many more things that we're trialing out now. But we'll launch it only when the full stack works. It works for a good chunk of people. It's been quality assured, and the use case really lands. We're not trying to rush it just to say we're doing AI. But it's important, in my opinion, to go as deep into the stack as you can.
Is it hard, though, to create a culture of experimentation, especially in the current market, as well as execution and getting things done, right?
No, it shouldn't be. I think it's much more of a human challenge of some people are comfortable on what they know. If you look, American Silicon Valley is used to this because you will see that they overdo it, right? You see everybody talks about AI even, and sometimes some folks are not even doing anything with it, but they know they need to talk about it to create a momentum so everybody start playing with it. In technology, or the big technology companies, it's natural to do it because you are so into what's next that you will have everybody playing with the things already. And you just want the same mentality, Property Finder or any startup. When you know something is the future, you need to start getting familiar. Everybody should play with it. Everybody should learn. Everybody should get into it. But you should only launch it when it's better than what you have, right? The mistake will be just to launch something before it's better than what you already have. But definitely you should have folks playing with those tools and building those stacks now, so you get there earlier than your competitors, for sure.
Have you already seen any kind of famous product launches where they think it's great and they've built it and they've just put it out there and it's just...
So too many. I'm not going to call them out because I'm pretty sure they try their best. But I mean, everybody can see them, right?
Yeah.
They're rushing it through just to say people are not stupid, right? If it's not valuable for folks, they won't use it. So I think it's good that they try to force themselves to put something out. Just don't make your users the guinea pigs. There are ways to trial things out without doing that. So the good part is that they're trying. The bad part is, gimmicks don't work.
Yeah.
Right?
So we're going to switch it now to scaling and product craft. So what is your secret sauce then in terms of like raising the bar in product organizations, but not once, but obviously continuously as well? I know you kind of touched on it a little bit there with Property Finder, but...
Yeah, I think for me, the main objective is you should never think like a corporation. right? And I know it's easy to bash corporations. I'm not trying to do that. But in a scale-up, what I mean is you have to walk backwards from the velocity and the innovation level you want, that you know you're going to need to win, right? Because you can always have a never-ending things you want to fix. You want better talent, better, deployment pipelines, better data. So there's so many things. And it's okay. You're going to fix those as you go. But what I like to do is set up the opposite. What does winning look like? Very, very clearly. What do we need to ship, or what areas, what needs from our personas or our customers, right, are clearly in need for improvement? Have an aggressive plan of how we're going to learn and test along those lines, and really use that as a line to force the company to get to that level. Which is, if you think about it, is quite painful, because you will put a level of velocity that is harder than the company can do. People are going to be stressed out. Things are going to break. Some things will not be ready. So obviously, it's a bit of a challenge, but you want that urgency. And it's much easier to fix something when you have the use case than try to have a 3-year plan to fix your data pipeline and a 2-year plan to fix your deployment pipeline. It's better to do those things, of course, but in reality, let's ship things and fix things as we go. So there's always value delivered to your customers or your partners, and the velocity accelerates, because you'll only learn by doing things, right? It's the same thing as talking or about going to the gym versus going to the gym every day, right? It's the same. You have to go to the gym every day for it to work, instead of talking about it. And it's going to be painful. Some days it's going to hurt, but it's still the right thing to do. And I think it should feel the same way. And you should always start walking backwards for what do we like to see if we are the best company in the world in this area. And you walk backwards from that, not the other way around, in my opinion.
And you talk a lot, obviously, about, in so many ways, high performance and winning. What are the things that, I suppose, piss you off the most about product people? And what I mean by that is, in simple terms, a lot of people get hiring wrong. What are the bad traits of a product manager and the good traits of a product manager that you see the best?
They're generally more of the company, right? I think the classic company mistake is putting project managers that are not project managers, right? And you only have them to, curate the backlog or be glorified project managers. Their opinion is not valued. I think that's clearly one end of the spectrum that doesn't really work. And that's the classic legacy IT company. You see a lot of that, sadly, in the UK and in Europe, because they come from that background, right? Technology was offshore initially. You bring in offshore, and these PMs are project management stuff, right? That's very low value, and that's why there is rightfully a lot of pushback against those positions, right? That's it, they should be. The other spectrum, which is also, I think, bad, is a product manager that is living in his own bubble and is not commercial oriented. So, all about the user. Of course, you should be all about the user, but then you need to bring that into the value for the company in terms of metrics that then drive long-term value. You cannot just sit there and say, I'm doing pretty things for the users. You should always measure it, quantify it, even if it's something soft, and ensure there is value delivered, right? So you need both. So I think both extremes are, to me, the pathologies, and the right people are much more avoiding those extremes.
Yeah. And with Monzo, you famously did hundreds of customer interviews before obviously shipping the features. But in practice, how do you actually embed that discipline into every team without slowing down?
I don't think it takes a lot of effort, and 10 interviews go a long way, right? So I would say that you just need to get that culture of everybody interviewing customers, right? Could be a guerrilla style, could be a little more, if you have more money, could be a bit more sophisticated. You don't need more than 10 to get it going. Of course, if you do more, that's great. And then you put something out there, and then over time you keep doing it, and you hopefully, when you launch, you survey 100 people, you interview them, you get qualitative data on what they think, you analyze it, you keep talking to them all the time. I don't think how you do it without it, if I'm honest. I mean, who are you doing it for? It will be amazingly lazy to do something I never have spoken or interviewed the actual users of it. I'm lucky enough that I don't see Microsoft was very strong on it, and all the scale-ups I went after it were quite passionate. Of course, in some occasions, if for example, if you were in Lovable and your product is for developers, you could say I'm the user, and that helps, right?
Yeah.
But in the cases where you're not the user, you have to you have to talk to them all the time. There's no way around it.
Yeah, and you've worked with obviously a lot of tier one investors, whether that's SoftBank, Index, Goodwater, and many more. What do product leaders often, I suppose, misunderstand about working with some of the big investors and their expectations in the role and the business?
I'm not so sure that look, it depends, right? I think there's cases where investors are really passionate about the product and they have used it themselves, they have opinions about it. Some of them, in the case of Monzo, a lot of investors love the product, and it helps that so many people use it. And I think that's great, right? And obviously it makes my life easier because you will just go and talk about what your plans are, why it works. They have their own opinion about it, and they do a lot of surveys and they get information, and it's really fun. Others ones, honestly, just look at the metrics, and the questions they ask about technology and product are very basic. The problem with those folks is that they will not have a perspective on where things should go, but they're much more, I call them like an Excel type of investors, right? They look at the financial forecast for the next 2-3 years. I personally don't like it because the technology changes so fast. You need a perspective on where the technology and product is going, but there's still a lot of them, particularly when you get closer to public markets. Nothing wrong with it. That's what they do, and they're very good at it. And forecasting and looking at industries, and that's okay. It's just a different angle. The questions you will get from them in product are honestly either basic or useless, but it's fine. At least they ask now. Maybe a few years ago they didn't.
But an Excel investor right now must be quite tough to navigate with the way that the market is in technology.
It's getting tougher, right? It's getting tougher to do that because velocity of innovation is growing. But I still think there's room for rigor and analysis, of course. That is not going away.
Yeah. Just going to switch back to some other sort of quick fire questions on the product side. Some might be controversial. Should we kill the product manager role entirely?
Oh, I love this question, man. You're going for a bit of a clickbait on this one. I don't even know what that means, if I'm honest, right? Because what is a product manager? Product manager is just a person working in a most likely a technology company who really cares about the solution to a problem. So the only way to kill it will be, okay, make that person also a developer, which is fine. But that works mainly only if the users are developers too. Imagine that now the user is not a developer, okay? So my question is very simple, back to you a little bit, as you asked. So who should be talking to customers all the time? And you can say everyone, great. So everyone talks to customers all the time, and everybody writes code. I don't have a problem with that. I think that would be amazing. Question is finding those people that are good at both things. So you could argue, well, if vibe coding becomes a thing, actually it's the opposite. Everybody's a PM that vibe codes, right? I think the truth will be somewhere in between because unless vibe code really gets that good, you will need the engineers ensuring that this works well and are amazing at overseeing the things and writing code. And you still need folks that are super passionate to learn about a problem. But I definitely see the lines blurring much more, right? But if you look at PMs from a core of what it is, at most I think you will need better PMs and working with fewer engineers because engineers are much more productive. I don't think it's so. If you think about a common organization, 1 PM every 10, 15 engineers, if the engineers are way more productive, is it that valuable to ensure that a PM writes codes too? I mean, you can, but if you're not great at it, there's no point. Maybe it's just the PM will vibe code more and the engineers will make sure that code makes sense. I can see that happening.
I mean, I'm the opposite. I think the product role becomes even more and more valuable with everything that's happening. Is having a vision actually killing great product teams?
No. I don't think how you kind of wake up in the morning without a purpose and a vision, right? What are you here for?
Yeah.
It's not that hard, right? There is a purpose to every company. There's a purpose, hopefully, to every human being. And it's not the vision is just a bit of a crisper version of that, right? That ideally has a bit more nuance and a little more visualization around it. But it comes from the purpose. So there is I think the more purposeful companies and people are the best because you can see it, right? Their conviction comes stronger and people follow them more. And I think they have a clear North Star and they don't kind of, and the classic example here, and I won't use the example I used in the past because I think it's just hitting on a broken already tree or log. But you see when people talk about what my company does and the blurb does, you still don't understand what they do. Those companies are not meant to change the world, right? Because even the founder, CEO, not CEO most likely, doesn't really know what they do. Like we're adding value for whatever, and you're like, what is it? What do they do again? So it's unlikely that to be either very exciting and motivating for the people working there, or a very clear North Star of where we should go. So in general, the most successful companies are very purposeful. They have a clear idea of what they want to be, what change they want to create in the world, what is the dent, like Steve Jobs used to say, they want to create in the world. And that's useful. Now, if using the vision as an excuse to not do anything, of course, that's not going to work. You need the vision and you need the energy and the delivery as well.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that purpose is key. Is trust more powerful than speed when building products?
Trust from the customers? Well, I mean, the fintech, you could argue yes, for sure, because it's part of the core value. I would say in other industries, I think it's arguable, depends, right? It will depend on which feature particularly. Some things are, you have to be more careful with breaking them. Other ones, people are just scared that you find the answer, not so much if you fail before. The way to think about it for me is just think about your own life, right? What you remember more, the failures or the success? And when you have a success, nobody cares about the failure. I think it probably might be similar. If you try a few things that don't work, and let's say no user adopts them, people might feel bad, but if they never found it was there, there's no really drama and there's nothing wrong, right? Which is different than breaking a banking app.
Yeah.
Very different. Let's say you build a feature and nobody finds it. There's no harm. But then if that journey took you to build an amazing feature that changed the trajectory of the company, that's amazing. And nobody will remember all the ones that didn't work. So really the importance is being in that journey to find the inflection point, where is really something transformational that you can build for your customers. And therefore, if they try something and doesn't work, they will forgive you, right? Again, outside of cases where the value is just that thing actually works and that you can trust it.
So what would you say your view is then on like the future of product when platforms like OpenAI control the stack? Will it wipe out the need for designers? Like, what is the future in your opinion?
I think OpenAI is going to be massive, right? Absolutely massive. It might, who knows, but it might swallow Cloud and Apple together, or it might merge with them. I don't know, but it's clearly going to be one of the titans. Maybe coexisting with Apple and Amazon and all the others, or replacing them. I don't know, but definitely is going to be one of those huge big four, big five companies, and Nvidia maybe somehow as well in the infrastructure side. So you're going to have to learn to work with them the same way you learn how to work with Amazon, right? And cloud was unavoidable. OpenAI will be unavoidable. The power of OpenAI is also front end, is both sides, right? It's the back end and the front end at the same time, so it makes it even more powerful. Designers will disappear. It could well be that LLMs start to be smart enough to create on-the-fly UX. But again, I think it's not dissimilar to engineers. So maybe a really good designer, will oversee many more things and be much more effective, and they have to be even better. So I don't see it that the engineers won't disappear. I think that ideally, as long as we're around, you will just have more throughput, more things to oversee. The paradigm might well change. The UX paradigm might well change. It might be much more voice-generated UX and not so much the apps we have today. Most likely that will happen. But there will still be importance on people that understand the interface with humans. Now, agent to agent will be a whole different ballgame that I think nobody knows how will work. And maybe designers don't have a role to play there. But as long as there is humans, user research and design will always be a part of it.
Now, I like to do one tool, one tactic, one truth. So what's the one tool you can't live without as a CPO?
Today is either Figma or ChatGPT. Both. Let's say both.
One tactic that consistently helps you to scale your teams faster or better?
The competition. Making sure that we are number one.
One truth about product leadership you wish you'd learned a decade earlier?
Oh, wow, that's a great one. Put more emphasis on painting the picture of where we want to be. Like, not just saying it, like visuals, videos, storytelling, it's really important to bring the organization with you. Sometimes as a PM, you know what you want to do, and you have to spend enough time creating the materials and the time to bring everybody on that journey, because you think everybody gets it, and in reality, they don't.
Yeah. No, I love that one. Now I've got the ungoogleable question. So tell me something about your journey as a leader, maybe a mistake, maybe a habit that I couldn't possibly find on Google or LinkedIn, because there is a lot about you.
Maybe mistake, a habit. Sorry, maybe a habit or
anything that is an ungoogleable question about you.
That when I get too excited about what we're doing, I tend to shift my working hours way into the morning hours. Like we say 2, 3, 4 a.m.
Wow.
My best ideas come in like in the shower or walking around or in the wee hours of the morning, which is not great for my health because and now in Dubai I wake up super early, 5 or 6. But if I'm really excited about what we're building, I tend to kind of stay overnight and think about. And sometimes, of course, you won't sleep and it's not a great thing. But I found it, for me, it really works.
I've definitely picked up on your habit. The event that we did, you were definitely walking around a lot before, and here you were walking around.
And I pace a lot.
Like to pace.
I pace a lot with those people. Absolutely crazy.
You are a pacer for sure.
Big time.
So look, if we look at it from the investor founder lens, when should a founder hire their first CPO? Because you do a lot of advisory as well and things outside. Is it too early versus too late? And what is the common mistake?
The obvious question is when they really feel they can let go of that role and they need it for scale. The classic mistake here is the founder doesn't want. Remember, CPO role or executive role is the main topic is you want them to lead and make the decisions. Not all of the decisions. Of course, you're going to have a conversation, but in the end, is the ultimate leader of that area. So if you're not willing to let it go, and the company is very small and you have a super clear idea what the product is, you don't need one because you are that person. And this happens particularly in the classic example of a founder who has his own problem he's trying to fix. He's really tuned in with the problem and has a very strong view of where it should go, right, in the early days. And if you are that person, you don't need a CPO, right? If you're a founder, it's much more commercial, and then, of course, you need it earlier. I say that at scale, if a CEO says, I'm the CPO, I'm the CEO, no, you're the CEO, right? There's two roles for a reason, because either you spend all your time looking at users and talking to engineers, and you're the product person, and truly you can do that. But if you spend half of your time talking with investors and dealing with all kinds of things and you don't have the time, it's worthwhile to have a person that does have the time to do it, right? Mm. Which is really what hiring these positions is, almost to ensure that you don't miss anything. Right? It's okay if the founder has 80% of the view, but the cost of getting the product wrong is very high. Now, if you want to be all over it, and you should not, if you're not willing to let it go, don't hire CPO, right? Same will apply if you're very technical and you don't want to let go of the technology side, right? You should hire a CTO as well. But just be truthful with yourself. If all your time is spent talking to investors and sales and commercials, you're not the CTO, you're not the CPO.
Yeah. And obviously you're well immersed with the CPOs globally. Like what's the biggest great and challenge for CPOs that you hear, in your close-knit community, like people that might come to you with the biggest things that they're frustrated with in 2020?
The classic one, which is, I think, our job to fix, is the board or the CEO don't really understanding product vision or where product should go, right? And it happens more, I think, it wouldn't happen as much in Silicon Valley, but definitely in Europe. Because it's harder to find CEOs that really get technology truthfully or have done it, or I think less and less, of course, as the new generations come in. But it happens more in bigger companies, and it's your job to spend the time and convince them, right? Yeah, that's really. But a lot will say, the board doesn't get it, CEO doesn't get it. Yeah, okay. Well, your job is to spend as much time as needed, so they do, right? Because it won't work if they don't. The engineering, you can get away with that because you're like, look, I take it off the platform. You can try to pretend to carve out that. I don't think it's great, but you can. In product, you cannot, right? Because product strategy is so intertwined with the business. You need to really jive with the CEO, and it's your job. It's not the CEO's job to do it. I mean, maybe a little bit, but it's mainly your job to put them at ease and spend enough time with them.
And what makes a good founder versus a bad founder then?
Look, I think all founders are great, because there are so few that take the immense risk of starting something from zero and put their financial lives at stake and go through a ridiculous amount of pain, and with a huge chance of failure, right? So I think it's very important we all recognize these people, right? A, because they create the world we want to live in. B, because they are job creators. And the ones that fail are as important as the ones that don't, because you need all of them, right? VCs, by definition, only 1 out of 100 or 10 out of 100 succeed. So all of them are equally useful, in my opinion. There wouldn't be a winner if there weren't 5 that failed. Now, if you want to now pick up as they move forward in their careers, because not all of them stay for 20 years, right? Because they don't want to, because it's not their thing. I think the traits that I found the best, on top of their uniqueness, because they're all unique and amazing in a way, they're either charismatic or super bright and super sharp about the problem of the industry, or they understand the industry better than anyone else. So they always have something amazing going on. The problem will be, as things get more complex and scale, do they have the right mix of listening to people, being confident enough without being arrogant to course correct? And it's a difficult balance because a lot of people confuse arrogance and narcissism with confidence, and it's not the same, right? A lot of people make huge mistakes, founders make huge mistakes, or the company is much smaller than it could be because they were arrogant, not too arrogant to listen to somebody and at least reflect on it. And other ones, which I think is a minority, will make the opposite mistake, which is listen too much and not really trusting themselves, because at the end, they are the founders for a reason. So I think that balance is very hard to find. And when I found a CEO, and I think Michael is probably find is an amazing example of that, which is confident enough and humble and listens to people, particularly in the areas that he's not that familiar with, is super rare and super, super important, right?
And have you, a question that I just thought of, have you made a mistake not taking a CPO job because at the time maybe you didn't believe the founder, but they've gone on to build something amazing?
I won't name it because it was confidential at the time, but I definitely didn't take roles that you're like, oh my God, that took off like crazy. I think it's the opposite for me, because I like founders so much that I tend to get excited when I talk to them nonetheless. So I don't think I have this occasion when I meet judges a founder, thankfully. But I definitely passed even interviewing with companies because I never heard about them that became huge. And now I'm like, oh, damn it.
Cost you millions. If you were advising a VC today, like what single product signal would you look for to know how like a startup will do well and scale?
Look, the answer here won't make me any friends, because what I think the main mistake VCs do, because they don't have the time, is not talking to the team enough, right? Not talking to. If you tell me where is the key success for a technology company, is the quality of the engineers and the product people, like literally the quality, right? How good are they is the number one indicator of how good it's going to be. So any proxy for that will be useful, which is not just throw me a roadmap and look at the roadmap, because everybody can paint a nice roadmap. Hopefully is do very insightful questions about what is the problem, what are you trying to solve, why do you find this solution, right? And where do you think is it going? And try to talk, not just with the founder, of course with the founder, but try to talk to the second tier, the third, and see how smart they are, how in tune with the problem they are, how passionate they are, and how exciting of a vision they do have. It's hard to do because most don't have the time, but I think it's definitely worthwhile to do, right?
And if I look at customers and community and bits that you touched on earlier, but how do you actually build these products with that constant customer dialogue and feedback at scale? And with obviously you did the 40,000 member base. Like I think there's a Monzo member base, 40,000, which was about co-creating a community, but without losing focus as well. Because it's hard.
I don't think it's hard. I think it's, if you're lazy, it's super hard. I think it's hard sometimes if you don't have the passion. It was easier at Monzo because the people were so passionate. So you have the community at Monzo of great feedback, although they're very high. They're not the average user. Find your passionate users and talk to them. I think at scale, you have a lot of tools, right? You have Qualaroo, a lot of tools that you can use to get qualitative feedback. But I don't think it's the main deterrent. And you have, of course, A/B testing in the end. I honestly think is most cases when people don't do it, it's just pure laziness, literally. Because unless you don't have a user, then it's a real problem. But if you have users, you can do this, right?
Yeah.
The more exciting the product, the easier, because it's even the conversation is more fun. If you have a very boring product, it's not, but you shouldn't be working in a product that you feel is boring. You should find the exciting part with it, because they're always there for a reason. At a scale, then you can get quite sophisticated. A lot of tools that you can use. I used to build really cool user research centers when we brought people in. You can do a lot of surveys or qualitative assessment and then quantify them, which I think is great. There's great tools now for NPS at scale that you can connect with your platform that then give you great insights, and people should use those, obviously. So I think in the higher end at scale is easier because there's so many tools and things that you can use. But I still think the most important thing is just interviews.
Yeah.
Right. And you can just hire a researcher if you don't want to do it yourself. That's all you need.
So we'll finish up on some quick fire questions, so succinct answers. So we're going to first of all look at, because you've made a bold move in moving to the Middle East, having been in Europe for a number of years. So if we look at the future and ecosystem and the MENA lens as well as some other bits, so what bold prediction would you make about the MENA tech ecosystem in the next 3 to 5 years?
Succinct. It's going to be huge. I truly believe it's going to boom.
What was that? Sorry? That was
going to be huge. It's going to boom in the next 5 years. I think you will be so impressed of where we are. And there are too many reasons to count, but the energy is there. The government supports it. There's great talent in Europe that is keen to come here, or in Asia. So I think it will go not only to develop things for the region, but also for the entire world.
What's the next major barrier, though, that you see in the MENA market that maybe no one's addressing yet?
I think it's always talent, right? That's really the big scarcity component is talent today. Capital, I think we have plenty here. I don't feel that it's particularly difficult now, but I think obviously universities will be the key thing to say how we can do more universities to get students here. I think it works pretty well already. I wouldn't see it as a massive problem. But talent is always, keep attracting great talent.
Just come to me. How do you see global companies adapting to MENA consumer expectations compared to maybe like the US or European markets?
Yeah, I think the expectations here are rising quite rapidly. Most of the people come from other places and they bring their expectations with them. And if you look at the digital experience of services in MENA, it's particularly in UAE, it's quite high already. And I expect it just to go higher and higher, right? I think banking will get better. Everything will get better. So I think it will rise to global standards, if it's not there already, very quickly, definitely within 2-3 years.
And Property Finder is tackling a huge life decision, obviously, in buying a home. How do you build trust in markets where tech adoption and regulation look so different from Europe?
Well, I honestly think it's some cases better here because the partnership works a bit better. So in the end, it's a partnership, right? When you have to work, let's say in fintech with the governments, you're part of the government a little bit, and you have to build that relationship. There's no escaping. So my point would be super transparent and honest around what you need to grow, and build those relationships, right? Don't push them away, because you need to be close with the government or regulators in that case.
Who's the best CEO, founder, or CTO that you've worked with, and what did they do though to set that bar on you?
Oh wow. Look, I'm with Michael is the one now, so I have to name him. I think he's amazing. I think the one that was more formative to me, that I learned the most, was David Battres, because I think he was an amazing leader.
And for those who don't know who David Battres is.
David Battres is the CEO of OVO now in the UK. I was a founder of Just Eat, and was maybe the first kind of scale-up founder that I worked a long time. And I just learned so much, right? How to lead an organization, how to fight when the things go the wrong way and still keep the positive energy. And just all around great leader.
What's the next barrier you personally want to break as a CPO of Property Finder?
I think we want to go way beyond classifieds and help the ecosystem with agencies, agents, and end users to make the most out of their properties or their homes and of their investments. That is making things more frictionless, have much more better data around their rationale for a particular investment, make it easier for folks abroad to invest in the UAE as well. And I feel it's such an amazing industry that there is no real bottleneck to that, rather it's just time. But we want to really make things much easier and give you much more trust that you can invest in fractional or full and without the friction and with very high trust in the ecosystem, whether you live here or from abroad.
And the last quick fire is AI prototype or customer feedback?
Both.
Build for global scale or solve local depth first?
Local dev first. It's a tough one. I go with local dev today, global the next podcast.
And what is the one barrier you want our audience to go out and break this week and leave them with?
One barrier? I think speak more directly and honestly. I think I cannot stress enough how being blunt and honest, at least in scale-ups, I'll keep to scale-ups, you don't have time to lose, right? So just speak your mind, be honest, be respectful, embrace disagreements, and just be yourself.
And last but not least, because you've made this bold move to the Middle East, having such obviously an amazing career, how are you feeling? And how would you want, maybe other executives that are looking to relocate and come to the Middle East in your obviously first, however many months that you've obviously been here now?
Look, all places, I enjoy my time in Europe and UK quite a bit, and who knows, one day I might go back, but I would say don't judge it without coming here. Even my perception changed a lot from when I saw it before to now. There are a lot of things that are way different than they look from outside. I think better, in my opinion. So I would say make the trip, come over even for a few days or a week, get to know people, make your own judgment, and forget about your preconceptions. Because it changed so much. If you haven't been here in 4 years, it's a different place. And it's definitely not the same as the perception from outside in some occasions. And I personally think it's an amazing place.
Fernando, thank you for your time and thank you for joining Breaking Down Barriers.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
And I've got one more thing to add for our audience. So I've got something interesting for you and a quick ask right now. 72% of the people who listen to this podcast every week are not subscribed. That's totally cool. But here's the thing. Subscribing helps unlock bigger guests, deeper insights, and the kind of episodes that genuinely make